Welcome back to Thompson to Clark, Brad, and Double G here to talk about actually a very successful week in Giants baseball last week. They went
like
5-2.
Yes. What did I say last week? They had to go. We had a 13-game stretch, and they had to win like 9 of those or 10 of those to come out the other end and still be competitive in the wild card hunt. And they're on their way, man. It's a nice start.
Yeah, we'll talk about the rest of the schedule for this week in a second here. But I just want to give you a little bit of credit because you said that the Giants were going to take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers.
That was a make me feel better after that last game against the Cubs because we got to get a 4-game sweep. And then, we lost that. And I think Brian or JJ was like, well, now, we lost that game, still won the series, but now we, got the Dodgers coming to town. And I said, we're going to take 2 out of 3, man.
Yeah.
We're going to shock the world.
You know what? Now, I'm not trying to be greedy here.
Yeah. Be greedy.
They had Saturday's game right there. It was like there for the taking, and they just couldn't take it for whatever reason.
Yeah, it could have been a sweep. I mean, it could have easily been a sweep. And you don't say that very often. Like, oh man, they could have just that game. Are we gonna talk about that game? I don't want to talk about that game, but I mean
we can.
I'll hold it.
we can talk about it in the context of the real reason they lose that game is just because their bullpen is spent.
Yeah, I mean that's it's that, and you have the opportunity to win it with the bases loaded. Get yourself a walk off, and Giants untimely hitting kind of bit us. We're used to that this season, unfortunately. But like I said too, I think a couple podcasts ago or the last one that this team can score 5 runs a game. I mean, it's and that's I think it was the show we did where we kind of did an early trade deadline when we were talking about starting pitching, because I think if we can get another starter or two, and we've got health, we've got guys coming back, that this team, I mean, they have the capability of scoring 5 runs a game. But when they have, and again, I say untimely hitting, but you're playing against the Dodgers and you've already scored 7 runs. Most cases, that's going to win you a ball game. But because we were in, opener and bullpen mode, it's just you're kind of rolling the dice there against a Dodgers lineup too. Although Ryan Walker did start that game. No, who started that game? Eric Miller started that game.
Eric Miller did.
And he went 1, 2, 3 in the first. So
and then
at the tone, man.
Spencer Howard comes in, gives up a few runs, and then they have to DFA him because they need more arms. Like that's the business of baseball move right there.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, he comes like none of us are saying that Spencer Howard is a great pitcher in any way. He's like a replacement level pitcher, but they needed him because they needed his innings and they needed his ability to throw more than one. And then you use him and use him and use him, and you're like, oh my gosh, we're out of innings. Well, who's the least valuable one in the bullpen that we could actually cross our fingers that he passes through waivers and comes back to us? Well, that's Spencer Howard. So it's just unfortunate but they're in that real weird roster crunch where you look at the 40-man, you're like, how are they in such a roster crunch? It's not like they are littered with all-stars, but it's because of the last few years where they've just needed so much depth and they've used a lot of it. I mean, just imagine if they didn't have to bring up Wade Meckler last year. Right. They wouldn't have had to burn his spot, and now he's on the 40-man, and he's like, I mean, I guess he's in AAA, but last time I saw he was hurt, but he was nowhere near ready to like actually be a contributor. They just needed his young legs to run out there because they were losing guys left and right. But not going to let the negativity of Saturday ruin what was a successful weekend, because I don't know if you saw some of those videos that were out there. Like Dodger fans were kind of trying to infiltrate the ballpark, and they filled up the bleachers. I thought it was going to be a white and blue weekend, and then the Giants made them sad in 2 out of those 3 games. So I actually like that. I'm happy
that's fantastic.
And I saw a lot of like, oh, I can't believe it's like that. Like, there's been times where they've been bad of late, and the other team's fans are there. That's just the way that it works today. Because you live in California, man. You get a lot of implants from different places. So
And I don't even think, honestly, I think the biggest switch that we've seen over the years are ticket prices, resell ticket prices. Otani is he's a draw. And
absolutely,
duh, that's why the Giants were trying so hard to get him, right? I mean, he's a draw to the ballpark. So of course, if you're an on the fence Giants fan, or you're going out of town and you're like, I've got these tickets, I can't make the Giants Dodgers series, I'm a season ticket holder. I don't know how it works. If you're a season ticket holder, can you just throw your tickets back into a pool and resell them? I'm not quite sure how it works, but I mean, if you've got tickets to sell, that's a game to do it, because you're going to get a Dodger fan who's like, oh yeah, man, I'll make the, however many hour drive it is up there to watch Otani play in that ballpark. Because honestly, if I had a choice to sit in Oracle or Dodger Toilet Stadium, I would take Oracle in a heartbeat. So I don't blame him.
yeah. And I mean, just the idea that you're in San Francisco, weather's great. If you're a Dodgers fan, I have no problem with you going like, oh, I want to go to the ballpark. It's a great ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a Dodger fan buddy who we go back and forth, and he loves coming to San Francisco to go to the ballpark. Like he's tried and true Dodger blue, but when it comes to coming to our park, he absolutely loves coming to our park. So,
well, that's what Niner fans do at SoFi in California. Brand new, state of the art, crazy stadium in Los Angeles, and opposing fans show up because that's the hot ticket in town. It's a new ballpark, so to buy a seat to just any old game is like $400-$500, and if you could resell it for $2,000, $2,500 or whatever, you're making
pay for your season tickets.
So yeah, it's a good investment. So I mean, that's kind of just the state of baseball nowadays. It happens. I mean, you see it happen in you've seen it happen to the Mets, and that's New York, and you've seen Giants fans infiltrate I want to call it Shea, but I know it's not Shea Stadium, Citi Field.
Yeah.
their new ballpark. I've got it's Bobby Bonilla Day, so I have Bobby Bonilla on my mind. He's getting his 1 million today, which is nice. But yeah, so I mean, you see it all over the place. It happens. It's a ticket. If you can turn a profit on a ticket, especially, I hate to say it, but especially in this economy, with inflation and everything else going on, if you could turn a profit, you turn a profit. So
you mentioned we did a trade show last weekend. I just want to re-mention that, because on our YouTube channel, the entire segment is there. We actually originally recorded it for Bleacher Report, but they allow us to put it on our YouTube channel. So that's up. We also posted it as a podcast. So there were 2 podcasts last week in the audio feed. And I think I'm going to try to get a podcast up with Brian, the Death Lineup, because sad times in the world of Warriors basketball with Klay Thompson
bummer
getting traded to the Dallas Mavericks, sign and trade. He was done with them. I think he just needed a new team. It's kind of like he needed just a new place to live. I think he needs to erase some of the past.
Do you think part of that too is kind of it's a little bit different because coach and coach and player, but kind of the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick split to see what they can do separately. I mean, maybe Klay was like, I want to show that I am still that player and I can go somewhere else without Steph and still shine.
I think it was probably mostly related to the Warriors not wrapping their arms around him and telling him how much they love him, and actually treating this like a business decision over anything else. And when they didn't do that for him, but they had done it for other players, I think he took that personally. And he's also probably in need of a change of place as well. I think if he's going to have another good season in his career, it might have to be away from the Warriors, because there's just too much stuff there, too many memories, too much history. And he can kind of start anew a little bit. But yeah, so I think we're gonna try and get one done before the 4th. So maybe tomorrow, maybe on Tuesday, we'll get an episode of the Death Lineup in. The other thing I wanted to mention before we get into the nuts and bolts of this show is you mentioned last week that you got the John Shea book about Willie Mays, and it's
Yeah.
like the way that he writes it. It's not like a Willie Mays biography. He is not writing in Willie Mays's voice. He is writing a bunch of stories about Mays, and then in bold letters you see Mays's quote about the situation.
That's cool.
And so while, you and I are kind of reading through this book just to get to know more about Willie, I decided that we're going to do a segment called the Mays Moment. And so, and we may not do it every week, but if I find something that's kind of, pretty interesting or pretty special about Willie, we'll add it to this show. So we'll have our first Mays Moment later in this show. All right, I guess we have to start this with a little bit of sad news. We lost another legend last week. It was, I think it was on Friday during the first game against the Dodgers, which they won after Brett Wisely hit a walk-off, just a gigantic blast. And that kind of, I had talked about my frustration in them not being able to win these games when Willie passed, but they were able to win this game on Friday night when Orlando Cepeda was announced that he had passed away. But that's another one that's kind of like two in a short time frame. And so lots of sadness around the organization. And now they're going to have patches both with Mays and Cepeda on the jerseys for the rest of this year. I kind of looked back at the history and his baseball records and stuff. And I didn't I'm sure I realized it, but it was jarring again to kind of look back and realize he only played with the Giants for 9 years.
Yeah, there was the whole McCovey Cepeda battle at first base and who was going to be there. And McCovey struggled, I think, after his first couple of seasons because he was rookie of the year, right? McCovey. And then he struggled
I think they
a
both
couple
were.
years later. Yeah, and was almost sent down. And so they had a log jam at first base. So I believe, from what I remember, they traded him to the Cardinals, and then he became an MVP with the Cardinals, which is always kind of painful to remember.
Yes, he did. But I'm sure that the Cardinals organization, celebrates him as their own as well. And this is like a big focal point, I think, in the history of the Giants is you got to go back to 1993 and Peter McGowan. And one of the things that Peter McGowan did with Larry Baer was bring back the history of the team. Because if you go through like the 70s and 80s, you would see Mays in like spring training and such, but those guys weren't really celebrated like they would be and like they are now as legends. And they actually got Cepeda in the Hall of Fame. Like it was a really big deal to try and get him into the Hall of Fame. He had fallen off the ballot. He'd gotten really close on the regular ballot, but he'd fallen off. And I think it was like a Veterans Committee thing. And he did make the Hall of Fame. So that was really cool. And yeah, it's just a bummer because as you and I get older, there are these people who we kind of see as like legends, and then, they're leaving us, and soon it's going to be, more and more and more, which is kind of sad to think about, but, we need to celebrate our people as their, this history of this franchise is amazing. So needed to talk about the Baby Bull. And, if you are in the ballpark, get a Cha-Cha Bowl at Oracle. That is after the Orlando Cepeda. That was his nickname, Cha-Cha.
That nickname has a little bit of a lore in our household because when the kids were really young, so Layla was born and then Audrey was born 2 years later. And when Audrey was young and she could start talking and everything else, I used to call her Cha-Cha because I loved the Cha-Cha Bowl. When we used to go to Oracle before we moved here to Reno, I would get a Cha-Cha Bowl. So I used to call her Cha-Cha. I do every now and then. And she's like, I don't remember that. I said, you were little. You were very young.
And then there was the story that I sent you about Orlando Cepeda. He was in San Francisco and he was in North Beach, which is actually North Beach is going to come up a couple of times on this podcast. That is where Brian currently lives. And he was walking around and he found a jazz club and he walks in and who is playing but Miles Davis. And I'm trying to find who the others were. I'm looking
So
for
it was Davis and Coltrane. And I believe who was the third artist? It was
can't
Cannonball.
find. Okay.
Cannonball Adderley, and he's another. So you got Miles Davis, trumpet player, and then Cannonball and Coltrane were sax players, and the three of them. So in the mid to late 50s, Miles Davis put this band together with Cannonball and Coltrane, and they played on the biggest, what's considered one of the biggest jazz albums of all time, and that's the Kind of Blue album, and that came out, I want to say that was 54 or 55. So this would have been late 50s, early 60s, because Coltrane passed away in 67, so this would have been our late 50s, so this probably would have been like 59, 60.
Kind of Blue, August 17th, 1959. Columbia Records.
Oh, it was 59. Okay, so it was later. That's right. It was post. I always try to, so a lot of jazz albums, I always try to put around 1954 because, as Giants fans, 1954 was kind of a big year. So I think of like a lot of the big milestone jazz albums at that time. So yeah, 59.
And so Cepeda goes into the club. They recognize him and they change their entire set to a Latin jazz set, just kind of on a whim, just right there. And I thought that was such a cool story because talk about the legendary status in that club that night of those three guys. And then Cepeda walks in and they're just able to improv and boom, off to a different style of music than they were currently playing at that moment.
That's cool. And they could do that. I mean, that was, if there's anybody that could do that, those are three giants of, which is fitting, three giants of the jazz of the jazz world. So Cal Tjader made that song that they ended up playing, kind of improvised on, and then I don't know if they recorded it, but Cal Tjader, who was jazz vibraphonist, Latin jazz vibraphonist, he recorded it and made it big. And it was called Viva Cepeda, and he's actually from. Cal Tjader is actually from San Mateo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was born in St. Louis, but then he lived most of his life in San Mateo. He has an album. I have it on vinyl. It's like blue vinyl from the early 60s and it's just called San Francisco Mood. So he was big in the area. So I'm sure he probably caught wind of this and, had to listen to it and was like, oh yeah, I'm going to grab that song and make it big. So if you look up the Cal Tjader, Tjader is his last name, Viva Cepeda track on YouTube, it's pretty darn good.
There you go. We don't only talk baseball on this podcast. There's your jazz lesson for the day.
Yeah, our heads are full of stuff that we may not be able to use anywhere else ever, but we'll give it to you here.
All right. So as we mentioned, the Giants take 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers. The Dodgers, not to say that they have any lumps that they need to worry about. They are a really, really good baseball team, but they have issues just like other teams when it comes to injuries and starting pitching. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Mookie getting hurt. And then I think Walker Buehler is back on the shelf. And so they're dealing with some, similar things that the Giants are dealing with. And so the Giants proved like, yeah, you guys are human and we're going to catch you at a good time. It was cool seeing Spencer Bivens strike out Ohtani a few times. Like, geez, he was fired up striking out Ohtani. That was amazing. And and then I'm watching this game and I'm going like, okay, the Dodgers are human. It's like in Rocky IV where Rocky hits Drago during their fight, and he bleeds, and Rocky's trainer Duke is like, see, he's not a machine, he's a man.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, the Dodgers are human here. The Giants are actually playing good baseball. And then you look at the thing and they're like 52-33. So they're totally fine. But I think it is a nice little thing for the Giants to kind of prove that they can play at that level, right? Because there have been moments this year where they have absolutely proven the other way that they can't play with teams like that. And they look really bad, but they looked good against the Dodgers. So I hope that they can use this as a little bit of a jump off because, like we had talked about last week, the schedule is rough this week.
Yeah, and that's the whole key. I mean, you win a series like that against the Cubs, you win a series like that against the Dodgers, you're beating the teams that everybody says you can't beat and you can't hang with. And yeah, you had a good offseason, but now you've got all these injuries and everything else. And hey, we've said it too, man. Injuries are killing this team leading up to it. The games that they have to win when they're healthy, they've got to beat those teams that they know they could beat and the teams that they should beat if they're going to have any chance at making the playoffs. So, it's how many times have we said that we've been here before? The Giants are 5-2 in their last, 7 games. Are we now due for a 2-5 stretch? I mean, that's kind of how things have gone all season long.
Gone, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they have to break that. They have to break out of that. Going to Atlanta, is that a way to do it? I don't know. I mean, hey, the ball flies in Atlanta. It's hot. It's humid. It also takes a lot out of you, but the Giants actually have a starting rotation. There are no TBDs or TBAs going for the Giants in the Atlanta series, so they actually have a rotation.
Yeah, who needed a day off more than that bullpen?
Oh, gosh, almost everybody got a day off today. I think there's only 3 games today on the schedule. So.
The Giants kind of helped the Cubs go in a little bit of a tailspin. They had a bad week, but they're still, they're 7 games under 500 now because they had a 3-7. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games, but they were where the Giants are right now. So taking 3 out of 4 helped them in this wild card standings. And you look at the Braves. The Braves are kind of playing 500 baseball right now. So not to say that the Giants are going to go in and sweep them because the Braves are a fantastic home team, but that they're if they are actually playing their really best baseball, I think they can compete. And the thing that I always hate though, when you go to Atlanta is like all of a sudden you realize that the weather is way different than than it was just here. And all of these guys are tired and sweating and their uniforms look like they weigh 20 pounds. And so that's a thing that we'll have to sort of figure out. But, tomorrow starts off a 3-gamer where they play, and you mentioned the pitching. So they got Atlanta for 3 and then the Guardians for 3. And you talk about a team that is playing good baseball and is kind of a surprise. Like I didn't know if the Guardians were going to be this good, but 52-30, 6 games over the Twins in the Central. That's pretty hefty. And you look at teams like the Orioles and the Yankees, and you think of them as world beaters, though the Yankees have actually, had a bad week. They're like 1 game behind both of those teams, 1 or 2 games. So they're right there for the top record in the American League. That's pretty impressive because you don't think about them as that kind of team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not even to the All-Star break yet.
Almost.
It's gonna start getting a little more wild. We're gonna start seeing the trades flying. I mean, I'm waiting for that. This is July 1st, right? So we have now 30 days.
Yes.
Teams are on the clock. I think teams are going to start getting a little bit desperate. There might be some moves kicking in here fairly soon, but I don't know why. Again, watching the Dodgers pitching staff, going back to that series, just really quick, everybody we named pitching wise in our early trade deadline show, the Dodgers could also use.
Yep.
And that's going to be the problem, because they have the farm system.
The
It's
deeper
not as
farm system.
robust as it used to be, but they still have that farm system to compete with anybody. I mean, if they want to get a starting pitcher, they're going to sweeten the pot, because especially, I mean, you imagine the pressure that's on them now after the offseason that they had. If they don't kick off this first offseason after being, in the playoffs, in the World Series the last, however many years, and then they go out and get Ohtani and Yamamoto and just really load up, trade for Glass now, I think they're going to have to make some pretty hardcore moves to secure themselves to possibly be the champs. I mean, they're going to be desperate.
They left poor Paxton out there to die yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
This dude giving up 9 runs. And they're like, we just need you to stretch this as far as you can go.
Yeah, and that was the same thing too. I mean, I think they were in one of those situations where I mean, if Bivens didn't pitch as well as he did yesterday, does he get pulled? I don't think so. The situation there were, I mean, because you pull him and you go, okay, Roop, hop on in, and now you are the guy. And I know you're just coming off of injury, but yeah,
get those curveballs ready.
Yeah, exactly. So it could have been ugly for Landon. I said Landon Roop.
All right, let's talk about some of the moves that happened. We mentioned the Spencer Howard DFA. That was to allow for Landon Roop to come back because they needed his innings yesterday. Tyro and Wilmer go to the DL. What was Tyro's injury?
Tyro, I don't exactly know what that one was. Let me look it up real quick, because those kind of happen like almost out of the blue. I think the description was that he's been playing through pain and he's banged up.
I think Wilmer's was just Wilmer to the 10-day for slow, whatever that means.
Yeah, exactly.
I think his knees are probably barking, is what they said.
I think his body's barking.
Yeah.
I mean, he's kind of an old guy, right?
But we got
wrist. Okay, it's officially listed as wrist. Wilmer officially listed as knee.
Okay.
We got
Lamont back.
Yeah, and there is a play that they're showing. When they were in Chicago, and he reached across, and Pete Crow Armstrong ran into his arm. So he's been playing, and that was in Chicago. So that was a couple weeks
ago. A week ago, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, he's been playing with that. So now he's out.
Lamont Wade is back. Tyler Fitzgerald. Fitzy is back. Fitzy is going to probably break the record, or he's going to exhaust how many times you can be up and down in one season.
Yeah. The limit is what now? 7? I think officially is 5 or 7, something like that. But
now that Ahmed is playing most of the time, you have this nice little tandem of Wisely and Fitzgerald, while Tyro is on the injured list. He's not going to. I don't imagine Tyro's going to be gone for too long.
Right.
So the young players who can fill in, flexibility, we like that. And Lamont Wade is just their best hitter. Like there's no doubt about it. You have him, and you have Ramos. Ramos, the ball's just jumping off of this dude's bat. Like I'm like thinking like, okay, he was a little late on that, and all of a sudden the ball's like off the fence. Like what? How is it just flying? He's got that really quick bat, and Matos. I wonder about Matos, because if you compare the two guys when it comes to their plate appearance and their strategy and kind of the way that they go into their ABs. When Ramos swings, you're almost thinking like every time he makes contact, the ball's going to jump. And with Matos, he makes such poor contact sometimes that you get a lot of pop-ups to the shortstop. You get a lot of slow ground balls to the shortstop. But then he'll put one like right in the gap and just hit a laser. So if he sits on one and he's got sort of the right mentality for that AB, he's great. But it just seems like Ramos's at-bats are a little bit more advanced, and he has a little bit better of an idea of what he wants to do. And he's just still consistently hot, which they need. So that, like, I feel like he's here to stay. I can't imagine unless he takes an 0 for 50 slump. Like, I feel like he is in the mix every day, and you just throw him out there.
Yeah, I think so. And you kind of have to at this point. I mean, honestly, because you look at the other options and they're not fantastic. So yeah, I mean, you kind of have to do that. I love pulling up Statcast. It's kind of a fun thing that we do. Because if you look at exit velo and barrels, and then change that instead of the entire league to just the Giants. Well, if you leave it on the entire league, Elliot Ramos barrels per plate appearance is 11th in the majors. And you figure he's only got 133 batted ball events compared to somebody else on this list, like Bobby Witt Jr. has 284. So it's 150 more. And Bobby Witt Jr. is only 4 places above him. JD Martinez, who just, started playing not too long ago because he was out for a while after signing late with the Mets. He's already up at 6th. But yeah, I mean, Elliot Ramos is batted ball events and barrels per plate appearance. He's at 10.4, which is absolutely ridiculous. Chapman on the Giants is 2nd. Conforto is 3rd. Soler is 4th. Yaz is 5th.
Soler is starting to pick it up a little bit.
He is, which is good to see. I'm actually going to update this because if you look at VR, okay, so if you go with minimum batted ball events at 1, VR is actually leads the Giants at barrels per plate appearance and or barrels per plate appearance percentage. He's up at 20%, which is fantastic. I mean,
he had a good
he
weekend.
came up. He had a fantastic weekend, and I think he's actually had a really good good appearances since he's been called up in general, and everybody's screaming, well, why him instead of I got to find him on this list. Trenton Brooks.
Yeah.
He was only at 3.4%. But I mean, at the time, the Giants needed that left-handed first baseman because Wade Jr. was out. And as soon as Lamont Wade Jr. was getting closer to coming back, they decided, okay, we've seen enough Trenton Brooks. We need to bring up VR because he's starting to heat up in AAA. He can play first base. We need another option. So they were able to plug in VR. And he does not miss a hanging breaking ball. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, Ramos is 3rd. I'm not going to tell you who's 2nd because nobody's going to remember Ryan McKenna.
The Orioles dude.
Yeah, exactly. And he had 9 batted ball events. But Ramos is 3rd. Brett Wisely is 5th. Chapman is 6th. Conforto is 7th. And then if you scroll down the list here, Jung-Hoo Lee is 16th. He was up there pretty high, but obviously due to the injury, he just kind of started slipping down the list. But Matos is 19th on the team at 2.5, but I think that's going to climb if he gets some more at bats. So I think having both of those guys in the lineup, I wasn't sold on Matos staying up before they sent him back down. Obviously, because he got ice cold and they had other options, guys coming off the IL. You had Conforto coming back. You had Slater coming back. You had to do some things. But now Matos being up and putting the ball in play as much as he does, that's a valuable bat in the lineup just because of the fact that he does not strike out a lot. So if you've got a guy who could just put the ball in play, that's what the Giants desperately need right now. And you can see it because they're scoring runs since he's been back up as well.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if that plays on the road because
Right.
they scored a good amount of runs in the series against the Dodgers, and it just looks like they're way more confident as a team at the plate.
Yeah.
Chapman hit a laser beam home run to left field yesterday to kind of get to that 9th run where I was just like, okay, like when earlier in the season, he's not on the nails on that ball like he was. Like that was just an amazing swing that he put on.
But he's but he'll go into a funk again.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Where he won't, he'll strike out on a pitch like that. So,
all right, let's do our very first Mays moment. All right. The book that we were talking about, 24 Life Stories and Lessons from the Say Hey Kid by Willie Mays and John Shea. By the way, I think John Shea's Twitter is the Shea Hey Kid.
I like that.
The story, we're still very early in Willie's career. The story is about when the Giants come west. San Francisco itself, the city of San Francisco, does not really warm up to Willie Mays. And why do they not warm up to Willie Mays? Well, it's because the hometown boy of Joe DiMaggio is their favorite, even though Joe DiMaggio played for the New York Yankees. The San Francisco Seals. The minor league team was the only team in town before the Giants came. Joe DiMaggio, born, I believe, in Martinez, California.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Martinez?
I have, as a matter of fact. We had friends who lived there, and my wife went to school near there in Vallejo.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law worked in Martinez at the Martinez jail many years ago.
I think
it's tiny. It's not, you can miss it.
I think the Martinez stands out to me in a way because I think my dad was possibly going to get moved to Martinez, or maybe he did get moved, and so he was like, should we move there or do I just commute from where we are? So there was like this family discussion on whether or not he was gonna head over there. He can correct me. Maybe he'll text me and tell me if my memory is right or not. I just remember there was a small amount of time where I was like, am I gonna have to move schools? Or we're gonna have to move homes as a kid?
Oh, so this happened when you were
like when I was little,
school age.
Wow. Yeah, when I was really young. So as the story goes, DiMaggio was, again, I mentioned North Beach earlier. DiMaggio is a North Beach legend. I was at the park right in that neighborhood, and I think there's something there. I don't remember what it was that was named after Joe. So there's still some significance there for Joe DiMaggio. And Willie said the thing that he realized that San Francisco fans didn't understand is that he himself was a big Joe DiMaggio fan. So much so that in 1951, which was Willie's rookie year, you remember the Giants win the pennant, Bobby Thompson's home run.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was a World Series that they had to play after.
Yeah.
And they played the Yankees in that World Series. And I the Yankees are in the World Series like every other year. And I just it's just one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, I forgot the Giants played the Yankees in the World Series that year, which was Willie's rookie year. The Giants go up 1-0 in the World Series. They go up 2-1 in the World Series. And then the Yankees win 3 in a row to win the 51 World Series. And that would be Game 6 of the 51 World Series is the very last game Joe DiMaggio would ever play. So Willie Mays is playing center field for the Giants. Joe DiMaggio is out there for the Yankees. And a 20-year-old Willie Mays is on the field playing against Joe in Joe's very last game as a major league player. So Willie says they didn't know that Joe was my guy too. In the 51 World Series, he hit a home run, and I'm out there in center field clapping. And he said he was kind of embarrassed, at least based on how his next statement, but was like, I didn't really do things like that on the fields, things that I regretted or whatever. And I'm surprised that nobody caught a photo of me clapping, but I realized that was like the wrong thing to do in that moment. And so
his pitcher probably did not appreciate it if he saw it.
Yeah. So I just found that little nugget so great. Willie when he comes to San Francisco with the Giants and realizes that, there's still this love of Joe who hadn't been in San Francisco for such a long time, and he kind of has to win over this fan base. Obviously, some of it is race related, and he's just like, "Hey, Joe was my guy too. He was the guy who I wanted to be like." He said he had Musial and Ted Williams also on that list of people who he just idolized. So I thought that was a nice little nugget. Our very first Maze moment, and we'll have more of those.
That's an amazing story. I haven't cracked the book yet. I say crack the book. I read it on a Kindle.
Yeah, me too.
Just, it's old school, right? Crack the book. But yeah, I that's a pretty amazing story because you figure too, and it was a different time, right? And he's a 20-year-old kid.
Yeah.
So he's out there with his heroes. I mean, Joe DiMaggio. I mean, he'd been playing since the 30s. So he was, kind of his guy. Yeah. He grew up in New York or not, didn't grow up in New York, but came over to play in New York and knew about, the lore of the Yankees and everything else. And I'm sure he followed him. I mean, that's a fantastic story. You think of the caliber of ball players at that time that were on the field at the same time, from both of those teams in that World Series that went on to be in the Hall of Fame is just absolutely mind-boggling.
Yeah, 1951. All right, let's get to we'll shut the show down here with our player of the week.
So this was a tough one, because now we're kind of picking them, and I was looking at this and I thought, man, Spencer Bivens kind of saved the day for the Giants yesterday. Goes out there, throws his innings, eats pitches, doesn't give up a ton of hits, only gives up one run, gets some key strikeouts against Ohtani. On the week, and we give player of the week based on the week, Monday to Monday. So in the week, Bivens pitched in 3 games, 8 innings, a 1.13 ERA, 4 hits on the week, 1 earned run, 2 walks, 7 strikeouts. He did have a 3.78 FIP, so his defense really worked hard. And if you watched, any of the games this weekend, you saw Nick Ahmed, Brett Wisely. I know Elliot Ramos had a tough time in center field on a couple of balls that he misplayed. One that almost destroyed them on Friday night. But the rest of the defense working really hard. Chapman had some fantastic plays. So that 3.78 FIP to get a 1.13 ERA out of that is kind of a testament to the defense.
One thing about the defense, it is like when we are probably a little harder on Brett Wisely's defense than most Giants fans because they're just happy that he's actually producing offensively, and he makes a play right in front of him. But it is a crazy difference to see how much Nick Ahmed and Matt Chapman can cover on that left side of the infield together. Not to the point of where I'm like, you know what? If Nick Ahmed wants to keep hitting 220 with, with 1 or 2 home runs or whatever it is, not to that level, but when they need it, like, you think about, late innings defense or whatever, that left side is so strong with those guys there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun to watch too. And I know a lot of people, ourselves included, aren't crazy about Nick Ahmed's offense. He does run into
his constipation batting stance.
His constipation batting stance. He does run into one now and then. He does, hit some base hits up the middle, hit some knocks over some, infielders' heads. He gets on base now and then. But to be able to save runs, I mean, that's kind of key. If you looking at defense this season, outs above average, which is kind of a key defensive stat. Tyro is playing Gold Glove caliber defense at second base, so he's missed right now. Wisely is doing a decent job. Fitzgerald's helping out at second base right now, but Tyro's 8th in the majors with 9 outs above average. 8th in the entire majors. 1st in second baseman across the board. Nick Ahmed is 39th, and that's the next giant in line, and you would think, oh, it's Matt Chapman. Well, Matt Chapman does make some errors, and third base is critiqued a little bit harder because there are balls hit right at you, and then there's ones that are shots that go past you that have a 0% fielding probability, because this is all based on fielding probability.
There's a lot of hurrying with him as well because of that position.
Exactly. So Nick Ahmed is 39th in the majors with with outs above average at 4. So the fact that him and Chapman over there can save runs, they can get outs that most people can't get. I mean, go look at any highlights of Brett Wisely at shortstop. And again, not knocking on the guy, he just is who he is. But look at him at shortstop going to his left. Look at Nick Ahmed at shortstop going to his left, and you'll see a gigantic difference. That's why Brett Wisely is really good at second base, because he's going to his right a lot of times to stop those balls up the middle. And if you can close up the hole a little bit to his left at second base, then you leave him to do what he does best, and that's go to his right. But yeah, I mean, all of those defensive numbers are coming into play, hopefully going forward, because we do have so many ground ball pitchers. So it's nice to see. But we were on.
Can I make one more
Nick
Ahmed statement? Okay.
Yeah. Is it good? Is it good? Or is it going to be nice to him?
It's funny to me. You mentioned David VR being able to hit a hanging breaking ball. Mm-hmm. So there was back-to-back at bats. I think they were back-to-back. So Nick Ahmed, I forget the righty who replaced Paxton. I think it was just like a diet of breaking balls, and Nick Ahmed's on his front foot, like waving at all of them, like strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, like Bugs Bunny, like he was done.
Yeah.
And then the very next at bat, I think it was a different pitcher, maybe in the same one. And so it's a steady diet of breaking balls again, but one of them gets hung, and then Nick Ahmed, that's where he actually hits that one. So it's kind of funny because I'm like, okay, the guy's just going to swing at the curveball. If you put the curveball where you want, you're probably going to get him. And if you don't, then he's going to get a base hit.
Oh, yeah. And then I think, who was it the other, was it yesterday? I think Brett Wisely got change-upped to death. And just, 1, 2, 3, change up, and just way out in front. But I mean, he does. I mean, Wisely has his bright spots offensively. And it's fun to watch. Again, it's fun to watch all these young kids. But I ended up, back to player of the week, I ended up giving the player of the week this week to Matt Chapman, who we just talked about. He's on a hot streak. He's not missing anything down the middle right now. He's not missing anything hanging. He's dialed in, 385 average on the week, a 243 WRC plus, 3 home runs, 9 ribs, a stolen base, added a stolen base, did get picked off going to third on an ugly play. What was that, Saturday night? I think it was. He's on second, and there's nobody out, and he gets picked off.
And he did score a bad base running team, by the way.
Yeah, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. I mean,
there was another one yesterday. I don't mean to pick on Nick Ahmed, but
yeah,
Matt Williams put the stop sign on somebody, and Nick Ahmed didn't see the stop sign, so they almost had 2 guys at third, and then he got thrown out trying to get back to second. Stuff like that.
This is not a team full of Ellie Dela Cruzes where you can mess up, but you can still beat the throw because you're faster than all hell. But this is a team that, if you take one misstep, you don't have the speed to make up for it. And it just becomes bad base running after bad base running. So that's why this team, what do they have? 13, 12 extra base hits yesterday, something like that.
Yeah.
That's
like
what they
10 doubles or something.
Yeah. And that's what they need to do is extra base hits, because, then you don't have to worry about a single and then trying to steal a bag.
If Matt Chapman can just get that average to like 250 or 260, I think we're fine.
Oh yeah,
it's not great in the 230s. You would like to see, he's going to strike out a lot, but I would, if he could just inch that batting average up to 250, 260, I think.
What is he lifetime? 240, 244, something like that.
Yeah,
I think he's it's like 244 lifetime. So yeah, if he can get it there, then that'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right. we had a comment on one of our shows a couple weeks ago, and they're like, the Giant Cocktails is the podcast where they talk about all these crazy drinks, and we're like, yeah, we love those guys. We love Matt
Yeah,
and Ben.
those
Like,
are our
they're
buddies.
awesome. Like, they had a drink the other day on their Twitter or their X feed. It had there was like a green tea something or other, and even Andrew Baggerly was like, whoa, that sounds interesting. And then so this person said, why do you guys talk about what you're drinking? It's not like you have no, we just did it because
No.
it was during the pandemic and all we were doing was drinking every day, trying to deal with this crappy pandemic. And so it just became a theme on our show. And
Yeah.
we're trying to have like a beverage while we do this show. So we just mention what it is. And for me, it is a bourbon mule. You know what I realized about this bourbon mule is ginger beer. Like, you look for like low carb ginger beer or diet ginger beer, and even the diet ginger beer still has like 5 grams of sugar. So there's something
Mm.
in the ginger beer that they just cannot duplicate for like a
Mm.
diet soda.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've seen 2 different ones. I saw zero sugar one, which did have 0 carbs, but it had like 14 grams of erythritol or something as the sugar
Whoa.
substitute. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a stomach ache to me.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got the diet one, which is just has 6 carbs in it versus like the 20 some odd carbs that the other ginger beer has. So that's what I use for my bourbon mule with the 4 Roses bourbon and some ice and a little bit of lime juice. So that was my diet bourbon mule.
Well, and to that comment, in the great words of Johnny Paycheck, I'm a simple man. I'm a common man. Sorry, simple man is Charlie Daniels. As Johnny Paycheck would say, I'm a common man.
There you go.
I drive a common van. My dog ain't got a pedigree. That's how that song goes.
That's your consistent go-to.
This is my go-to. They are a sponsor of Major League Baseball. But this is a good. I mean, it's a charred oaky bourbon. If I just want, and it's only 43%, so it's only, what is that, 86 proof. I have so many bourbons that are like 100 proof, 110, 120. But if I just want a sipper with a couple of ice cubes in it on a hot day like today, that's where I'm going. It's just straight up Evan Williams. And to Ben and Matthew, cheers. We've had them on our show a couple of times, and we've shared drinks with them. We got to do that again. I think maybe around the All-Star break or something. We need to have a podcast All-Star show for the All-Star break.
Yeah, those guys are cool, and they've even stepped in when we've needed some help too.
Absolutely.
So there's no competition for us in this field. Like, we love everybody, except for that A's guy who blocked you for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, there was an A's writer. He didn't. I mean, he was talking about how hot it's going to be in Sacramento next year for the A's to play there, and I commented and I said, well, the River Cats do that every year. I mean, every single summer in Sacramento, all summer long.
Yeah,
they play in the heat. And he said, well, what's the difference between the two? And I said, well, I don't know. They're all baseball players.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the A's players, if I had to say it, the A's players are actually minor leaguers.
Well, I was about to say that the average age of player on those teams, the River Cats is probably not that far behind the A's.
No, not at all. But it was a very civil conversation. I was just making baseball conversation and I got blocked. Twitter's weird, man. I don't know.
So sensitive.
I don't take it personal because
I'm surprised because you swore off Twitter the other day. I think you're trying.
I did.
To live on Threads a little bit.
Yeah, and I was back on there because there's a lot of cool baseball stuff going on right now. So I hopped back on because Threads is good, but Threads, oh my God, you get on there and it's like diatribe of I went to the airport and this is what happened to me. It's like, I don't really care. I just want to know about baseball. So back on Twitter and just, because that's where Bags is.
Yeah.
Pavs is there. Brisbee. They're all on there. So, I hop on there and just check out their stuff and try to block out as much else as I can, which is hard to do on there, man. But,
yeah, it's kind of hard.
But yeah, well, I don't take being blocked personal. So if you want to block me, go for it. I still know I'm a cool dude.
We
So
might
I
make
don't
fun of
worry
you
about it.
on this show, but go for it. No hard feelings.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, so my wife and my stepkids, they went to Gastonia, North Carolina today.
Oh. Oh,
So
the family. They went to see the fam.
yeah, they went to see the grandparents, and
Nice.
the reason why I didn't go is because the amount of money we would have had to pay for dog care was like
Ooh,
crazy.
yeah.
So I was like, okay, like I'll stay home, no biggie. But 2 weeks is a long time, so I'm gonna be having to find things to do. And one of the things I'm gonna do is Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh,
The
yeah.
4th movie comes out on July 3rd on Netflix. And so what I did is I bought the 4K versions of all the first 3 Beverly Hills Cops. Now,
Nice.
the 3rd movie's not good, but you kind of if you're gonna do the rewatch, you
Don't
kinda have
don't
to
knock
have it.
Great America, man.
Okay, so that's the thing is a lot of the movie is filmed at Great America, which is like 10 minutes from my house, which
Yeah,
is a staple for our childhood.
absolutely.
I
I had a season pass. I'd ride my bike down the street and go to Great America and hang out.
and I think they're getting rid of it, like, soon.
Yeah,
Like,
10 years. I think
yeah,
in 10, yeah, there's like a contract and it expires in 10 years and then it's gone.
and they're
So
just gonna, like, build stuff over it, like
who knows, man.
so anyways, that is part of my, just trying to make sure I got stuff to do is the rewatch, the Beverly Hills Cop rewatch. I'm gonna finish rewatching the first one tonight after we're done with this while I'm eating dinner. And then I'll get through 2 and 3, and then I'll get to see Beverly Hills Cop 4.
Nice.
Axel F is the full title. And
I'm excited.
I heard some people say that it was actually pretty good. So
Nice.
I'm excited.
Well, it's Eddie Murphy and it's not Norbit. So it's
Exactly.
I'm kidding because
Pluto
I
Nash.
yeah. I'm kidding because I love Norbit. It's like one of my guilty pleasures. I own it on DVD. That's how much I like Norbit. It's just one of those movies that it just cracks me up. Cat Williams is in that. So it's a little good stuff in there.
My
But
guilty pleasure Eddie Murphy movie is called Metro, and it
oh
is his
god.
post Nutty Professor movie.
Yes.
But the reason why I like it is because it's San Francisco based, and it
Yeah.
has Michael Rappaport as like his sidekick. I need to watch that one again.
I didn't realize Steve Martin actually wrote Bowfinger. Did
Yeah,
you know that?
I
Know
feel
that
like
he wrote.
that's a more of a Steve Martin movie than it is Eddie Murphy movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched the Steve Martin documentary on
Apple TV.
yeah, well, I think it was on Apple TV.
Is it
I
good?
watched that. It's great. I mean,
Okay,
I love Steve
I need to
Martin.
throw that one
I
on
love
on
the
the
Three
list.
Amigos. He puts on the actual Three Amigos costume. And the hat, and he pulls it out of storage and put. So for me, I like geeked out. That was fantastic. And the second half, he does a lot with Martin Short in it. The first half is cool because it's all about Steve Martin, the comedian. Then the second half, so there's two parts to it. The second part is grown up Steve as a
Yeah.
writer, director, actor, and he tried to listen to some of his stand up during that in the documentary on a tape. He got about a minute into it. He goes, "You got to turn that off. I can't take that guy." So
Okay, I need to put that on the list. It's been
it's very
kind of on the it's been on the list, but a little bit far down on the priority. But again, because I've got all this time, I'm gonna go through. I'm gonna finish the Beverly Hills Cop, and I want to watch The Bear. Have you watched any of The Bear?
That's on our list, and I think we're gonna watch it at some point, but I'm not sure. I really want to watch Dark Matter on Apple
Mm.
TV Plus because I have read that book. I'm a Blake Crouch fan. I think he's a fantastic writer. I've read probably like 7 of his books. And that is on my list, and that has gotten huge reviews. So I think that's our next thing. We're finishing finally, years later, the last episode of Miss Maisel. So that'll
Okay.
be in the next
Well,
night or
that
two,
was a
so.
long bunch of seasons there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you're thinking we're circling back to Giants baseball at this point, we're not. I should have said that this is like rando time.
But we are, because next week I'm not going to be here.
Okay, you're right. I was going to bring
Yes.
this
So
up.
now we're back to Giants baseball.
So Well, I may be able to do something next week, but it's possible that we will not have an episode. And partially this is because Brad and family are coming back to the Bay Area, and Brad and myself and my kids and his wife, we're all going to the Giants game against the Blue Jays. And also joining us will be Rod from We Want Winners. So we're going to have the entire BSPN crew there. And then I think we're going back on Thursday. So we're going back to back Giants games Wednesday, Thursday. So basically by the time we're able to record again, we'll have some viewing experience of the team in person that we can talk about. And then I guess then the next week is the All-Star break. So we'll figure out a time when we can record when Brad gets back from his vacation.
Yeah. And we're going to a concert when we first get to San Francisco. We're going to go see Tate McRae. If you're not familiar with her, she is a pop star.
Pop star.
Pop star from Canada. So you'll see her. She's done a lot of like NHL All-Star halftime performances and whatnot, but she has 2 albums out, I think, and they're both like chart toppers. So
you're getting some stuff done back in the Bay Area.
Oh yeah, man.
Are you guys do you still have any family out here at all?
No.
Or is everyone in Reno?
If we have any, the family we do have is East Bay.
Okay.
But that's Denise's family. My family, no, not really. Nobody in the Bay Area anymore.
Wow.
Yeah. And friends too. They've moved like San Diego, Sacramento. So don't really have anybody down there anymore.
Wow.
But we're going to do the fun. I think on Monday, we're going to do the, public transit up to Pier 39 and Ghirardelli and do all that fun stuff. So yeah, kids have they've never been to San Francisco. So this is going to be.
So at all, even when they're babies?
Never. They've been East Bay. They've seen San Francisco from the great grandparents' window in the East Bay that looked out and you could see the Ghirardelli sign, but they've never actually been there. So this will be the first time. Yeah.
All righty. That is it from here. Thanks to everyone for checking us out. And we don't have a schedule for Bleacher Report upcoming. I know there's some stuff going on with them, but we don't know if we're doing any shows for them in the near future. So which means that we're going to keep on our Monday schedule, which is our favorite show to do anyway. So that's good for us and good for hopefully for the people listening. So a little bit more consistency here, but so probably missing next week unless I can find a guest that I can just do a show with. But Brad and I together will not be back for a couple of weeks. So for Brad, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.